Welcome to Mentoring Moments. Mentoring Moments is a sub-series of the E-Commerce Edge podcast. It is composed of clips taken from Jason's one-to-one and group mentorship sessions. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the E-Commerce Edge podcast with me, Jason Greenwood, your host. And I'm looking forward to welcoming my next guest, SOCRATES ROSENFELD from Jane Technologies. Welcome, SOCRATES.
Jason, thank you. It's a pleasure to be on.
I'm really looking forward to having this conversation. I've only ever had, I think, in almost 500 episodes, I've only ever had one other cannabis-related or cannabis-focused technology episode ever. And these were guys that were working in the manufacturing space and more of the lab space around the cannabis industry and manufacturing under contract for other manufacturers of gummies and other cannabis-related products. And they were effectively contract manufacturers of a whole range of cannabis-related products. And they came onto the podcast to talk about the evolving landscape around. I think what their point was super interesting was that not only are we having legislative changes related to the cannabis industry, but we're also having societal and cultural changes in relation to the and attitudes towards the cannabis industry. But welcome to the podcast, and I think we're going to have a really great conversation today. But before we get into this, you've been doing this nearly a decade now with Jane Technologies. But before we kick this off here and we really talk about what you do, how you do it, why cannabis, why tech, why e-com, etc., why don't you walk me through how you even ended up in this industry in the first place? Because there's probably very few people that would come out of university or whatever and say, hey, I think I'm going to go into the cannabis industry. So how did you get here?
Great question. I'm asking myself that every day I wake up, man. How did I get here? Specifically on how I found the cannabis industry, it found me more than I found it. I found the plant for the first time after I got out of the Army in 2011. And long story short, cannabis really helped me come back home, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. From the time I was 18 till I was 30, I was in the Army, and coming back home was a transition for me. And cannabis helped me really do that. And so I went from someone who had never touched the plant, was quite frankly afraid of cannabis for all the misinformation that was fed to me from a young age, to now really finding solace and healing with the plant. It was a real friend to me when I needed a friend. And at the time I was at MIT studying about how to start a tech company. And I thought to myself, wow, if I could ever start a tech company around the plant to help provide access to everyone in the world who needs it, that would be a dream come true. And I graduated grad school, shifted out to California in Silicon Valley, where it was the epicenter of technology. And it was also the home to cannabis, California cannabis. I know you were born here in California, and it was a dream for me. Really, I was a medical patient. I was studying about technology, and I had convinced myself that I didn't have what it took to start a company. Again, believing what everybody else had told me. You have to be a software engineer. You have to have grown up in that arena. And I finally got to the point, Jason, where my love for cannabis and my love for creating something outweighed the fear and the doubt of trying something new and the what ifs that we tell ourselves when we start. And so back in 2015, I've been really lucky to be surrounded by so many special people in my life. And one of them is my brother, who's a very talented software engineer, also went to MIT and understood big data systems and integrations. And he, alongside guys like Ben and Howard and Simon, the other co-founders, we came up with this idea not only to provide the ability for folks to shop online for cannabis like they shop online for everything else in the world at the time. And again, this was around 2014, 2015. But we really saw, and why I'm excited to join the show with you, Jason, is we saw the cannabis industry as an opportunity to do things in e-commerce that no one else and no other company had ever done. And so fast forward now, we have 13 software patents. We sit on top of a lot of information and know-how. And the only way we got and received that wisdom is actually by putting this into action and figuring out how to connect the offline and online worlds in a way that no other company has ever done before. Not Amazon, not Shopify, not DoorDash. And I think I just map it back to when you're afraid of something that's natural, but your love for it, your belief in it, and I believed in cannabis and I believed in the team and we love each other and love the plant, that got us over the hump. And now we start to really innovate and again, found ourselves in uncharted territory, which is challenging, but also an opportunity to really create something that no one's ever done before. So it's been quite the journey, man.
Wow, I love it. And as somebody who is hardcore into natural health, nutrition, supplementation, and always looking to nature first before looking to traditional allopathic medicine and pill for every ill, which in many cases, unfortunately, creates other downstream problems when you go with traditional. Basically, mainstream medicine is oftentimes, it's a business. It's a multi-billion-dollar a year business. And so the reality is that oftentimes traditional, or I guess we call what now is traditional medicine. When we used to say traditional medicine, we used to think of pre-allopathic medicine was called traditional medicine. But now what everybody calls traditional medicine is the traditional medical industrial complex medicine. And unfortunately, it's big business. And the reality is the whole entire industry has a vested interest in keeping you sick but alive as long as humanly possible to extract as much money out of your back pocket as humanly possible and as much money out of the insurance industry as humanly possible. And so anything that flies in the face of that automatically gets poo-pooed and gets thrown out. You throw the baby out with the bathwater and get called snake oil. But I think it seems to me, and before we get into the tech and the business aspects of things, it feels like there is definitely a sea change starting to happen the world over, apart from maybe places like New Zealand where they put decriminalization, they put some legislation up for a referendum, and it was shot down, unfortunately, and people said no, we don't want to legalize cannabis. But in other countries, in more progressive countries, and certainly throughout Europe and the United States, and to a lesser degree perhaps Canada, it definitely feels like there is a cultural change in the mindset around cannabis and its use, it's traditional use, and saying, look, sure, of course, you can abuse cannabis just like you can abuse anything else. Sure, alcohol is legal, it's regulated, but it's legal, and people abuse it every single day, and it leads to family violence, and it leads to car accidents, and it leads to all sorts of bad societal outcomes, but it's legal. And I think most people, unless they perhaps are highly religious and they just oppose cannabis on moral grounds, full stop, most people are starting to come to the realization, at least through my lens, and I don't work in the industry, so I'd love your take on this, that, hey, if given a choice of the societal ills of cannabis or the potential societal ills and misuse of cannabis versus the societal ills that happen as a result of abusing alcohol or other forms of drugs, most people would probably say, I'll take the outcomes of cannabis every day of the week and twice on a Sunday. Is that kind of the societal shift and the cultural shift you're seeing and witnessing too?
Yeah, we don't even need to speak in the hypothetical of what if. It's fact now. And society is coming to the truth. It's no longer, hey, I heard about this magical plant that helps people. It's fact. Look at the statistics coming out of Colorado, the first state to legalize adult use, or as known in the market, recreational cannabis. Opioid addiction has gone down. Look at Illinois. Southern Illinois has been, Western Pennsylvania, places in Maryland, Western Massachusetts, where the opioid epidemic has ripped through communities. You put cannabis, legal access to medicine, that decreases by orders of magnitude. Violent crime goes down. Drunk driving, vehicular deaths go down. There is no increase in youth. Back in the day, I grew up in a town called Newton, Massachusetts. It was easier for me, even someone who wasn't looking for it, to get access to cannabis than it was to get alcohol. And then you talk about, so that's kind of data. You talk about now revenue implications. I just saw in Arkansas, we're starting to feed kids in the school system in Arkansas because of the tax revenue that they're gaining from legal cannabis. What a story, right? There's a surplus of tax revenue in Colorado. They don't even know what to do with it. They were even exploring writing checks for their constituents. So from a revenue standpoint, that's proving to be a win. And then that's all knowledge. The wisdom in my belief is that you can have knowledge by what other people tell you. The wisdom comes from direct experience. And as someone who's a veteran and knows hundreds, if not thousands of veteran stories of how cannabis and other plant medicines have helped the warrior class come back home and heal from post-traumatic stress, heal from the physical, mental, emotional abuse that we put ourselves through to defend this country, the answer is there's no argument to be made. It is fact. And now when we're arguing against that, we are arguing against the truth. And that's why you see sentiment across the country continue to increase, because it's the truth, right? We knew this about cigarettes. 100 years ago, no one thought cigarettes were bad. But you start looking at the facts, not the arguments about, hey, I'm this religion or I'm this politics or that. It's just fact. And we in this industry, certainly at least at Jane, we will continue to defend the truth and do everything we possibly can to showcase the truth. And one last thing too, Jason, is in a time and place that is the United States, where there is so much division around everything, what Super Bowl team you're rooting for, whether or not you want to wear a mask, whether or not you want to vaccinate your kids, everything has been politicized and divisive. Cannabis truly is one of the, I want to say the only thing that's universal. Whether you're in a red state, a blue state, whether you live in the city or in the countryside, whether you're old or young, man, woman, black or white, whether you're in law enforcement or not. I have friends who are former or active police officers. What would they rather go and respond to? Someone who has been consuming cannabis, someone who's been abusing alcohol? The answer is easy. And so our hope and why we are doing this, outside of it's a really cool tech challenge to solve. Obviously, there's a business variable to this, a component to this of making money. Really, what this is about is, can we align ourselves with the truth as a company? And can, in the products we build, the branding we put out there, the information we put out there, can that be in service of the truth around this plant so that people can actually figure it out for themselves? It's not for everyone, right? Coffee is legal. I don't gravitate towards coffee. I like tea, but at least give me the choice. And that's what we're seeing. And that's why you're seeing sentiment from 50 years ago now be overwhelmingly in support of cannabis. But really what I would say is it's overwhelmingly in support of the truth. And so let's continue to touch the truth and then build from there. That's how real progress is made.
I think to your point, I think the biology, the evolving biological understanding of when we think of the cannabinoid system, and when we think of the cannabinoid receptors in our body and the CB1, CB2 receptors, etc., and most biologists who understand human biology and physiology, they understand that these are real things. They understand that cannabinoid receptors are real things and that they activate significant portions of our immune system. They modulate immune responses. They're naturally anti-inflammatory. There's extensive existing biological and physiological understanding of the cannabinoid system. But I think more and more that data, that research, those findings, the results of tests, medical testing is validating a lot of what you've said, right? And we're actually getting it even from the mainstream medical complex, the medical industrial complex. Some of that information is starting to leak out. And I think one of the things that's holding more of that data and more of that information and more of those research reports linking out, and there's been so much research done on cannabis that is just never seen the light of day in the general public, that I think your point about education, I think making something accessible. Why is it that there are certain industries that we are just not allowed to even discuss? Why are there certain points of view that we're not allowed to even talk about? It just doesn't make sense to me. In theory, we live in free countries. I live in Mexico now. In theory, New Zealand was free, but we found out during COVID it wasn't free. We learned that Australia, in theory, is free. We learned that during COVID it's not a free country. Country completely locked down, borders completely locked down, forced jabs, jab mandates, mask mandates, everything else. I think people everywhere are starting to realize that the supposedly free countries they thought they lived in, that no, there's a very strict narrative. There's a governmental narrative. There's a medical narrative. There's a military industrial complex narrative. There's a narrative around lots of things where society is not what we think it is, it's what we're sold it to be, right? And so a lot of what you're saying speaks to me in the sense that you're fighting for truth. You're fighting for truth specifically around the cannabis product and the cannabis plant, and you're trying to make sure that the people that need and want access to this valuable traditional plant can actually get access to it. But what I love is you have fused effectively this belief system born out through personal experience, and you've combined it with a technical solution to make it more and easily accessible to your customers. And if I was to boil down Jane, I would class it, and I'd love your take on this. I would class it as you're effectively the Amazon for cannabis, but you've taken that one step further, and you're not just an online marketplace for cannabis products, right, but you fuse that with the physical experience too, which Amazon doesn't do. So for example, if I want to buy something off of a supplier on Amazon and I want to go to one of their physical stores to pick it up, but I want to do click and collect via the Amazon platform, I can't do that. Through your platform, through iHeartJane.com, I can. So I can shop live menus for pickup and delivery. I can see reviews all across the platform. And I'm guessing that some of those reviews might be for the online experience versus the physical experience. And obviously, you're trying to personalize the shopping experience for the customer by capturing not only attributes of the products that are sold on Jane, but the attributes and the goals and the desires of the buyers who are using Jane. And you're connecting those two things together on one platform. And that, to me, feels pretty groundbreaking.
Man, I couldn't have said it better myself. And for the listeners, we didn't talk before this, so thanks for doing your research, man. That's exactly what's being born from Jane. So before Jane, we had this thesis that, quite frankly, people laughed at us when we presented this when we were early fundraising. We had this hypothesis that the future of e-commerce would not be building another Amazon.com, because Amazon.com has proven to Diapers.com, to Jet.com, to others who have tried to copy them, saying, good luck. Our model, I'm not revering Amazon as some do-good company, but in terms of business modeling, very competitive, very hard to displace. And so we thought, and we didn't set out to go and defeat Amazon, but I live in a small town here in California, Santa Cruz, California. It's
beautiful, by the way. Santa Cruz. I would never live in California again, but if I did, Santa Cruz would be near the top of my list, followed by San Diego.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Pay that good weather tax out here.
Yes.
This community is a small seaside community where there are small businesses. The reason why the majority of people living in Santa Cruz, and Santa Cruz is actually an exception because people live with intention here. And so they will sacrifice the convenience of Amazon and go to a store and, sit in line and go through the aisles to find the product they want. But the majority of the country is just too damn busy to do. And so if you think about what we love about Amazon is on the consumer side, and Bezos is famous for saying, we start with the consumer, we obsess with the consumer, and we work our way back. And we don't care if that grinds down brands. We don't care if we undercut the brands that are partnering with us. We don't care if small businesses go away. All we care about is doing what's the best for the consumer, which is admirable, and they've proven they've done an extremely good job of it. But in this transaction between buyer and seller, to completely remove the seller, Amazon has become the seller. Amazon has the monopoly on what they sell to the consumer. And who suffers from that? Not really the consumer, because we can get away and say, hey, this is really convenient for us and we get this personalization, we can read reviews. It's that small mom and pop store down the street that's carrying the product that I'm ordering on Amazon, but I never go into. So what happens? They can't afford their rent. They can't hire local people to work. And then you can start seeing the fabric of small towns going away. And this has been happening since .com, to be honest with you. America has been built on, and this capitalist game we're all playing has been built on actually small businesses serving their communities. And we're seeing now the monopolies buy stuff up. Okay, at Jane, there are games within the game. If there is the inability to ship cannabis directly to the consumer, while that may be a significant challenge for tech companies and e-commerce businesses like Shopify, like Amazon, hell, let's go take advantage of that and let's prove that we can actually allow the consumer to shop by reading reviews, by getting personalized recommendations, by comparing price, by scheduling a time for delivery or pickup, all that stuff that you do normally on Amazon. But instead of driving and consolidating that value to one technology company who only provides 2 bathroom breaks for their employees, right? Which I don't think is fair. Can we instead push that value and distribute that value down into the local communities? And this is where our inventions have come to play, where we can take every SKU. Right now, there's on average about 700-800 products sitting on a dispensary physical store shelf. Could you imagine as a store trying to write the descriptions, maintain your online menu so it's accurate? Of course not. That's why the small pet store, mom and pop pet store, doesn't have an online store, because it's almost impossible to upkeep. We've invented a way for our technology to pull all that inventory from offline onto the online platform, so that not only are we automating e-commerce for these small businesses, but we're inviting them into the marketplace and pushing the value back to them. And now they get real data, they get real insights without requiring any of that work. And we're starting this here in cannabis, Jason, but there's no reason why our intellectual property can't be applied to alcohol, can't ship alcohol directly to the consumer, very difficult. Groceries, right? It's very tough to ship a tomato fresh to you in the mail. You got to locally pick that up. Convenience goods, all these little, man, I had to go buy something as like a blowtorch, and I can't get it shipped to me, and I'm trying to figure out where I can buy it. And I remember thinking, dang, this would be so convenient if I had a Jane technology to do that. So to your point, there is a way to take the great stuff we love about Amazon and now marry that with bringing and inviting Main Street into the digital world. And what a beautiful story it will be. And the story that we are writing here at Jane is this technology is born from the cannabis industry and can be applied elsewhere. And when we go and prove that out, that'll be a beautiful day. But right now we're focused on the cannabis industry. We're developing our IP because we think there's a more optimal world where buyers and sellers can win, and not just the buyer winning and Amazon winning and the sellers losing.
Wow, incredible story. And have you ever heard of a platform called Locally?
No.
Oh, cool. So I've had them on my podcast before, and they're doing something a little bit similar, but not for the cannabis industry. But they are creating an online marketplace for only in-store purchasing listings. So making sure that people can find. So if I'm time pressured and I can't wait for it to be delivered by an Amazon or a retail store, or whatever it is, I want to know of these businesses that sell this SKU that I'm looking for, this product that I'm looking for, where can I walk in today and pick it up and pay for it in person? And it feels like you've effectively, what you've done is you've fusing the concept of an Amazon with the concept of a locally and delivered it on a single platform, all focused on the cannabis industry. And it feels like you've taken those two concepts and you've joined them at the hip, which is really cool. And also, it feels like you have effectively taken it upon yourself to deal with the regulatory, the compliance, the payments infrastructure, all the really nasty parts of trying to do e-commerce in this industry, and something that the little mom and pop shops, they have no ability, they've got no experience to navigate these treacherous regulatory and payments waters. Famously, you pretty much can't do a cannabis business on Shopify, for example, which is the number one B2C and D2C e-commerce platform out there, because you can't do Shop Pay. You can't use Shopify payments for cannabis-related products in most instances. And in fact, the vast majority of payment gateways out there will not do business with you, even if you are operating a legally regulated, formally registered business that's operating in the cannabis industry. Just to even be able to take payments online is an absolute minefield. And so for me, I'm thinking you've abstracted away the most painful parts of trying to run and operate an online cannabis business, whilst also helping to drive additional traffic to physical retail where it makes sense and where they're within close proximity of their customer. Plus, you've created a community of customers, all congregating and aggregating in one single place. And so you're getting the eyeballs, you're getting the virtual foot traffic that is very difficult for these individual stores to do on their own, because they may not carry, for example, as you said, they might only carry 800 SKUs in store, but in aggregate across your entire platform, there might be 100,000 SKUs, or there might be 1,000,000 SKUs that the long tail of that gets indexed by Google. And so therefore, you're going to be able to pick up more traffic to your platform than they ever could on their own, with the long tail of only 800 products versus the long tail of 100,000 products, for example, in terms of long tail SEO. And so it feels like you're creating an essential bridge between the digital and the physical experience, and small businesses and big communities.
That's spot on. And we say thank you to Shopify and Uber and DoorDash and Amazon and Google and Facebook for being, and rightly, risk averse right now, given they don't have to move into this space. And so we say, thank you. We'll take this challenge on. And it really is challenging. It really is complicated. But we feel like in that challenge is an opportunity. Number one, an opportunity to help move this industry forward in partnership with our retailers and brands. They're fighting the good fight too, and it is not easy out there. So any way we can help them through digital tooling to go and focus less on compliance of payments and how do I advertise and what product should I carry, and focus doing what retailers are meant to focus on, and that's carry the right products and provide a great service for their local community. That's where we need to be. And secondly, from a business standpoint, no, you can't run ads on Facebook. Okay. We have 3 patents on our advertising platform now on how online advertisements can reach offline consumers. You are exactly right. You can't process a credit card online. Okay. How do we figure out through our partnerships with the likes of AeroPay, et cetera, how do we move money in a legal way from one bank account to another bank account? So there's some digital tooling and some convenience there. And by the way, it's a safety hazard too to be carrying so much cash, right? All these things that seemingly were too challenging or too risky for other big companies to solve, we'll gladly step in and move this thing forward, because when we do that, not only are we helping this industry move in the right direction, in our opinion, in our vision, in partnership with the other players in this space, but from a defensive mode, we now have laid the digital infrastructure by which consumer content, payments, advertising, e-commerce, in-store transactions are running through our platform. And with that comes information and data, which only compounds and creates this virtuous cycle for us to continue to grow and scale and apply those learnings to other retail verticals. So to all the entrepreneurs out there wondering, man, this is too hard. If it was too easy, the big guys already moved in. Go where it's hard, figure it out. And again, you have to ask yourself, do you love this enough to go where it's really hard? Because it's been tough and challenging. And I talk to these retailers who are still fighting. The majority of them Yes, there's a business component to this. And it's an and, not an or. And they really do believe in the plant and all that it can do. And that's why we're still here fighting, despite, taking a step back. At times, rescheduling has been pushed off. Legalization we thought was going to come. It hasn't come yet. It will. So who's still here ready to continue to push this thing forward, even though it might be very hard or very scary to do that? Again, it comes back to, does the love and the belief in what you're doing outweigh the fear and doubt and risk that you might be facing? And that's where change is made.
Wow. That's an inspiration for anybody that's trying to do something hard. I don't think it's just people in your industry. I think anybody who's trying to do a hard thing out there. I know when I started my consultancy over 4 years ago, B2B e-commerce was not the sexy thing that it's becoming now. And so I had to have a lot of faith and I had to have a lot of belief over 25 years of being in this space and watching so many trends come and go, so many fads come and go, and seeing the patterns play out over many years around certain things. I had an absolute hardcore belief that B2B e-commerce and B2B digital commerce, full stop, was the next digital frontier that was really going to make a massive splash across the industry. And I knew that B2B e-commerce was 5 to 10 years behind the maturity and the adoption of B2C and D2C e-commerce. But I had absolute faith that the industry needed people like me and others like me in the industry to bring it out of that nascency and to move it forward and to get it to a place of similar maturity to B2C and D2C. And man, if you don't really believe that, like in the pit of your soul, you will never, ever stick around long enough to see that kind of thing to come to fruition. And I feel like that's where you're at. You're at a place where I know this is coming. I know I'm early. I know I'm at the front of the wave, but the wave is coming. And I want to be the person that actually helps to generate the wave as opposed to just ride the wave. And I really like that. Now, for you guys, from a technical perspective, this has obviously been nearly a decade in the making, right? This is, and so many things have changed in that period of time, in that 9+ years of time, legislatively, cultural acceptance of cannabis products. But what I like is that one of the additional things, and maybe I'll get you to speak to this next, I can shop by effect. So I'm not a cannabis user myself personally right now because it's so difficult in Mexico to get anywhere legally near this stuff without having a major issue. It's not that I'm against cannabis. It's just, wow, here in Mexico, it's a fraught thing, right? But if I was in America and if I was in a state where cannabis was legal and where I wasn't going to get thrown in the clink for buying products, but I'm not educated on the product. I'm educated on its overall beneficial health effects, but I'm not an expert on strains, formats, gummies versus oils I'm just not an expert. I'm not an expert on the product. And what I like is that your platform caters to people who are not experts, right? I can shop by effect. I can shop by how I want to feel, and you've done all the hard work by making sure that the products are properly attributed, that they've got all the structured data attributes you need to be able to facet and filter by effect and impact and duration and all these other factors. So basically, you've taken what we would advocate for, like specialists in our industry, we would advocate for any vertical. Like the more product information you have, the more structured data attributes you have, the better filtration mechanism that you have, and the better you can link attributes of the customer to attributes of the product that they want or the outcomes that they're trying to achieve. The better you can link those two together, the better shopping experience somebody's going to have. Full stop. So you've effectively done what we would advocate any specialist vertical player would do, which is to get deep on product data and make sure that's presented in the most useful and meaningful way as part of the shopping journey. And I really like that you've taken that on as an ownership thing, and you said, look, if we want to create a really good shopping experience, we can't just cater for the experts. We can't just cater to people that have been using cannabis products for years or decades. We have to be able to cater for newbies too. And the only way we can do that is to have great product data, right?
Exactly. That let's start there. I have two thoughts. One is like how we personalize cannabis. But the first thought there is, you nailed it, is all data isn't created equal. I remember I was a sorry consultant back in the day, and like a management consultant, and I was sitting in some windowless room, and I was trying to locate I had a manager that was like, okay, find all the 6-pack Budweisers across the country and tell me their sales lift based on X, Y, and Z. And I was
Wow.
trying to peel through a Nielsen retail data set about Budweiser and started to realize, wow, this one product, this 6-pack of Budweiser is named and represented tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of different ways, just in the United States alone. And we saw this as an opportunity to say, okay, if we, again, the benefit of, there was a case study written on Jane at MIT, and the professor was very clear. He said, Soc, we are writing this case study as much as we love you guys, and it's cool that you're alumni, it's cool technology. Really, what you have the potential to do is organize. And he said, he emphasized that word, organize an entire industry's worth of data before Google does. And he said, if you can do that right before the Googles and the Amazons and the Facebooks, you are in a position that very few tech companies in 2025 are in, because it's been commoditized, right? Google owns everything. So now the ability to cleanse that information and structure the taxonomy of that information allows us now to do wonderful things. Automate e-commerce. We have a very competitive advertising business because we can understand the attribution down to the minute level, which is rare in the advertising world. But to your point about personalization, how we bring that to the consumer, it's only because we have structured the data painstakingly, Jason, again, another labor of love, for a decade, where we've trained our models to understand, this is actually the same wild one-to-one pomegranate gummy across thousands of retailers that we partner with. Okay, now we can understand how consumers shop for this product. So now how we talk about personalization, we compare cannabis to music in that it's very personal, right? My playlist on Spotify, there's only this, that's mine. And yes, there might be some overlap with you, Jason, but I like some other things, etc. And Spotify is very similar to Amazon in the sense that it doesn't help its musicians out, similar to how Amazon doesn't help its sellers out. But focusing solely on the personalization piece, I love how Spotify is able to recommend my next track or my playlist based on my inputs on how I listen to the music. Right? Oh, wow, Sock has repeated this song multiple times. Let's feed him some similar things. Or let's actually throw him something new to listen to that has the same kind of structure, but completely different artist. That's how I can grow, and I love that. Amazon does something that we love in terms of social proof. Very important. If a brand tells you, I'm gonna highlight Wild again. I think they're a very good brand in the industry. If Wild says, hey, this CBN gummy helps you go to sleep. Okay, that's one input. I read it from the brand. That's one thing. But if a million other, and we have over 2.5 million verified reviews, meaning only consumers who have purchased that product can leave a review. But if a million consumers say, hey, this product helped me go to sleep, guess what? I'm going to believe that's going to drive conversion. That's the win. We start developing trust with that user. So we've introduced not only the ability to personalize recommendations for the consumer based on machine learning, but now we've built up and can follow an individual SKU and how that SKU has been purchased, consumed, tagged with different effects. And we can provide that information in the form of education back to the consumers and the community so that they can make a very informed decision, rather than sometimes you mentioned you would be a novice user. Walking into a dispensary is very overwhelming. You're going to go to a bud tender. You're going to say, hey, I need some help going to sleep. He might recommend you a product, right? They're doing their best. But imagine if you had a million people pointing you to a product in that store saying, hey, Jason, this product actually really helped us sleep. Hey, I know you're trying to be gluten-free. These are the gluten-free gummies that help you go to sleep, and you're willing to spend below $20. Hey, let's present this product to you right there. And that's what we're able to do. And again, not from a direct-to-consumer standpoint, but bringing the inventory from those small businesses, those local retailers to you and presenting in a way that's educational, digestible, and most importantly, trustworthy so that you can make an informed, safe decision on the medicine that works best for you.
Crowdsourcing that information is definitely the way to go, because obviously one of the things about cannabis is that there might be a standardized effect, but there's also biological specific effects, meaning that every body is slightly different. Yes, we've all got cannabinoid receptors, but the way that a specific strain or a specific product or a specific format of product or whatever is going to work with us could be different, right? But
Exactly.
There's most likely somewhere out across those 2 million reviews, 2 million plus reviews, there's probably a good cross-section of people in those reviews that have a similar biology to us. And so we're going to pretty quickly be able to work out, is this kind of a pretty universal effect of this product? And if 80% of the reviews say it has this effect, it's a pretty good chance that it's going to have a similar effect for me. And I think that crowdsourcing that information across the broadest subset of human beings and their unique biologies, I think that's a really important part of this. But
Can I say one more thing,
Yeah.
Jason, on that? Because it's a great point that you bring up. Now, when you go on Amazon, that is a personalized website for that individual. Imagine if walking into a cannabis store, there's 800 products there, it's overwhelming, or a grocery store, and the shelves change, and we can just take and curate all that merchandise down to the 20, 30 products that we think you'll love. That's where we're going next, so that the experience on the homepage or the website or the menus from these stores aren't going to be vanilla cookie cutter. Hey, here are all the same products. It's going to be, hey, Jason, welcome back. Here's what we think you'll like based on what you've purchased before, how you've reviewed, what you've repurchased, what you haven't repurchased. And I think that's the future, not only of cannabis consumption, but all digital consumption. It'll be extremely personalized to that individual user.
Well, and to your point, if I go into a jewelry store today, and I've used this analogy before on the podcast, I don't just go in and the salesperson behind the counter drop 30 items on the counter before they even speak to me. First thing they're going to do is they're going to say, hey, are you shopping for yourself or someone else? Are you shopping for a special occasion? Do you have a preference for you or the person you're buying for? Do you have a preference of metal? Do you have a preference of stone? Is this for a birthday? And do you want to use their birthstone? They're going to ask you 20 questions. Then what they're going to do is they're going to go to their counter. They're going to pull out maybe 3 items that fit. Do you have a budget in mind? Then they're going to pull out the 3-4 things that they think is going to tick as many of those boxes as possible. And then they're going to show you those items. They're not going to just say, they're not just going to show you everything. They're going to curate based on a series of questions. They're going to curate the experience that you have in that store to make it relevant to you. And I think that's the power of digital, is that we can actually curate the experience in an automated way, and we can make it much more relevant. And I think with conversational AI, we're not quite there yet, but I think eventually we'll have agentic AI agents that are active on a site that will transition across sessions for us, and it will spool up effectively a concierge, an AI agentic concierge that remembers all of our previous interactions, all of our previous discussions. It's going to ask us questions. It's going to have a conversation with us, and then it's going to present a curated list of products that we think is relevant to us, that it thinks is relevant to us based on the wisdom of the crowd experience, but also based on our specific buying preferences and behaviors. And it's going to have access to every page we visit. It's going to have access to every category we visit. It's going to have access to our zero and first party data that we've willingly given to the system as part of the question and answer process. And that agent is going to become an expert in us. And it's going to spool back up again. It's going to spool back up that history of all the interactions it's had with us every single time we visit the site. And eventually, I think we're probably going to get to a place where customers will be able to choose, do I want the traditional interface where it's the click and find and maybe a search bar interface, or am I going to have the agentic AI experience where I'm actually going to literally be conversing with an agentic AI concierge? And effectively, it's going to be an enterprise search layer that's backed by an agentic AI layer that it has access to the same product data and all the attributes and everything else, but it also has access to all of our personal attributes and our personal behavioral attributes. So I think that's where I feel like the future of commerce interfaces is headed. We're not there yet because I don't think the technology is quite there yet. Even I'm a ChatGPT Plus subscriber and I use a lot of different AI technologies every single day, and we're not there yet. But I'm still frustrated. For example, when I go to use Zero, I'm still frustrated that I can't just talk to the software and tell it what I want it to do. Instead, I got to hunt and peck through all these submenus, and everything else to find the thing I want to do, even when I just want to reconcile my bloody bank accounts. I can't just talk to the software and tell it to do it and tell it how to reconcile things. I have to click around and I actually have to do the actions myself. And I think that the future of all software interfaces is going to eventually be conversational, because the way that we describe things and the way that we all describe the things that we want or the things that we want to achieve is slightly different. But with agentic AI, it's going to be able to take into account all of the contextual information it holds around us as part of that conversation. And I think that's where it feels like the industry is headed. What is your take on that?
I think you're right. I think this is agnostic to any specific vertical. It's going to be universal across the internet. This agent will follow you from website to website, and you just explain what you want done, and they'll help curate that information for you. So you're not doing those physical clicks through different subpages, and they can really make the experience more personal and more efficient for you. Yeah, I think that's as you're talking about that, it's interesting because how is that agent going to interact with agents native to that one specific website?
Yes, or platform, or exactly. At least maybe agentic AI APIs. And then you'll have, I think you'll probably be given the opportunity to bring in your external agent, or you'll be able to interface with the platform or site specific agent if you don't have a third party agent yet that's acting on your behalf. An OpenAI agent, for example, a subscription with that it remembers everything about you. If you don't have that yet, I think it's going to start out with each site's going to have an agentic AI that's assigned to you. And eventually, if you have a third-party agent, it will interact with that local agent. And it'll be agents talking to agents at that point.
It's really, if you're sitting down the Google Chrome team right now, you're probably touching that at some point. You're probably talking about that right now. That's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a fun time. It's a fun time to be in this space, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a wild time.
Listen, this has been an absolutely fascinating conversation. I've really enjoyed it. I'm really impressed with what you guys have built and are continuing to build out. What is on your radar next 6, 12, 18 months? Is there anything that both your brand customers and your buying customers are asking you to do that you don't yet do? Or are there any other gaps in the market that you already see and you say, we don't do this today, but in 6 months we will be, where you see this is where we have a chance to continue to innovate in our space?
We've done a lot of, it's been a pleasure being on with you, Jason. You're extremely well-versed in the e-commerce space, so I appreciate it, man. Clients are lucky. We have in a very disciplined way and put a lot of our energy and resources in ensuring that our e-commerce offering is best in class. We have proven that across e-commerce, advertising, brand loyalty, and now it's really interesting. Can we bring that level, similar to how we pulled the inventory into the online world? Can we actually take some of the online personalization, the really curated and relevant advertising into the in-store environment now? I was talking to, I won't name drop, but the CEO, founder of a very large point of sale company. And what they were saying was that they're excited, they're not necessarily focused on the online as much as they're really focused on how do you make the in-store experience look and feel very personalized. The beautiful part in cannabis is that when you walk into a store, it's like a nightclub. It's funny. I used to, anyways, I won't say anything about walking into a gun store. Well, I didn't have to show my ID, or a liquor store. I don't have to, I can be 18 and go walk through a liquor store and not have to show my ID. But you can't even step foot into a dispensary unless you show an ID. And you have to be 21.
Wow. You can't even walk in.
Can't even walk in. What's interesting now is that we can identify the individual before they actually step foot and start the in-store experience and shopping. Imagine what that could open up when we say, hey, Jason, welcome back. What can we do from a personalization standpoint, from an advertising marketing standpoint, that can really enhance the in-store experience? And so there is this marriage, again, between the online and offline that we're really excited about. That's one of the things that we're really focused on for the future. And I think that has legs, not only again in the cannabis industry, but leveraging that IP into other retail environments outside of cannabis retail.
I think that NFC, mobile NFC, makes that enables all that, right? So in other words, we can, someone's giving you, when they create an account through your platform, they're giving up their email address, they're giving up their cell phone number, and then effectively, I guess at that point, you could ask them, do you want us to personalize your in-store experiences as well? Meaning that because I've got the app loaded on my phone, or if I have the app loaded on my phone and I haven't just used the web interface, then what that means is, and that's probably an added incentive for someone to install the app on their phone, is that I can detect when you're within range or you've walked through the door of one of my stores that's listed on my website as one of the suppliers of products on our website. And we can now say, hey, look, based on your purchase history, these guys are now running a special on XYZ product that we think is interesting for you. And here's where you locate it. And here's where the store layout is on the device. There's also a couple of, and I'll make some introductions for you outside of this. There's a couple of technologies out there. One's out of Australia. I've got a couple of good friends that are building it out of Australia, where they track all the merchandising locations of every single physical product in a store. And they know exactly where it's located in the store. And it's primarily today used for fashion, so that when they make a merchandising change, they can see the conversion impact of that merchandising change in store. So they can say, okay, if I move this product from here to here, then what's the change? If I move this product from the back of the store to the front of the store, what's the change? If I bundle these products together, maybe on a mannequin, for example, what's the change? So what is the behavioral changes that happen when we merchandise our products differently in physical spaces? And it tracks all that, and it gives that data back to the individual store merchandisers so that it can make recommendations. It can say, okay, cool. Now we're tracking all of the attributes of every single physical product in every single location in the store. Cool. Now you've got this new drop. You've got this new product. This is how, based on the attributes of that product versus all the attributes, matching attributes of similar products that we've seen over the last 5 years, this is how we recommend you merchandise that product.
That's it.
And so it is starting to bridge that online, offline experience, because we can track all of our website changes. We can run ABM testing online, but it's very difficult to do that in store without technology that's specifically designed to do that and facilitate that. And I feel like your technology, because you have to do integrations with point of sale systems anyway, because you got to get the data feed, you got to get the inventory feed, you got to get the pricing feed. And most of these mom and pop stores, they don't have an ERP in the back end. You're lucky if they have something like a Xero or a QuickBooks in the back end. But 9 times out of 10, they're running their entire bloody business out of the point of sale system, including their accounting and their tax and everything. They're running it usually out of their point of sale system. So I'm guessing you've already got to have integrations and data feeds from these systems anyway. So at the end of the day, if you can push data back into those systems from a marketing and merchandising perspective, aggregating, and I think there's one final data play here. You guys already may be exploring this, but I see a data play where somebody who's looking at setting up a brand new retail store, you have the data on what's hot in every single corner of the United States. And so if I was going to go set up a brand new cannabis store, I would come out and pay you. I'd say, look, tell me where cannabis sales are the hottest. Tell me the curated top 50 list or the top 100 list of the top selling SKUs in this area. I will make sure that I absolutely 100% stock those items, plus a few more just for surprise and delight. But I would engineer my entire brand new startup physical store business based on your data, because you got better data than anybody else. So I think you already got 9+ years worth of data. I think you become a big data play just as much as a storefront play. That's my take.
That was our idea, that we have many hypotheses. We also have the hypothesis that every digital company is a data company, whether they realize it or not. Some are doing it better than others, right? Google's makes money off advertisement. It's a data play. Facebook, same thing. You can even argue Apple, etc. There is a data component to this. That's exactly right. We call it not only what products should you be carrying, what's the price elasticity on the local demand, what are good complements and substitutes? If you're vertically integrated, when should you start be manufacturing new products and delivering them back into your store so that it's just in time, so there's no
stock outs
or stock outs? Exactly. And that's why this industry is so exciting because, yes, do we have to deal with the challenges and the regulatory red tape? Of course. But if we can be elegant in how we solve for that, the upstream effects of that, the potential to do more and prove this out before the NCRs and the squares, et cetera, man, that's where it's at. And so I love hearing about locally. I love this company that you referenced in Australia. That's telling me that the movement is happening and that the future of e-commerce will be in the complete digitization of all commerce. And that's where we'll continue to focus our efforts.
I love it. I love it. Now, if people want to get a hold of you, they want to chat to you, I'll drop a link to your LinkedIn profile into the show notes. I'll also drop a link to your website in the show notes. But other than that, how do you like people to reach out to you and have a conversation about this wonderful world of cannabis?
Man, we love connecting with our consumers and brand and retailers out there. DM us on Instagram at iHeartJane, LinkedIn. Thanks for posting that, Jason. iHeartJane.com. Hit us up. Shoot us an email, info@iHeartJane.com. We respond within the hour and I will see it. So if you're curious and want to learn more, just reach out to us. Please don't hesitate to do that. Really appreciate it.
Man, I love it. I had such a fantastic conversation with you, and I've learned an absolute truckload. So I really appreciate your time. Now, as we do come down to the end of our time together, this is where I get to flip the script. I get to hand the microphone over to you. I get to let you ask me one question, any question you like. It could be personal or professional. SOCRATES ROSENFELD, which is such a cool name, by the way. It's just so memorable. From Jane, what is your question for me today?
I mix both a personal and professional. Seeing as how you're living in Mexico now, do you foresee Mexico ever legalizing cannabis in the next, I'll put a time frame to it, next decade? What do you think?
I think it will be forced to. I don't think it wants to, but I think it will be forced to because it's been proven all around the world. The thing is that you make the market for illegal drugs by making them illegal. You create the entire incentive structure for people to take insane personal and professional risks because you've inflated the price of something that should be dirt cheap, practically freaking free because it's a plant and it grows very easily. You make the market you make the black market for all those products when you regulate them, when you over-regulate them, when you outlaw them, when you ban them, and my position is this, okay? Regardless of how you feel about personally or morally or religiously about a product, I think the ultimate form of sovereignty is personal sovereignty over my own body, right? And I think that people should be able to do with their own body whatever the hell they want to do with it. If they want to destroy their body, fine. More power to them. Just make the penalties for harming someone else in the process so freaking high that, for example, if you go out and you kill someone while you're drunk in a car, I think the penalty for that should be absolutely through the roof. I think it should be extreme. But if you want to kill yourself as an alcoholic at home by drinking yourself into oblivion, look, I may not like that, and I don't encourage that, and I don't recommend that, and I don't think that's good for your soul. But if you don't have sovereignty of your own body, what do you have sovereignty over? And so for me, I think that is slowly starting to be realized around the world, and the statistics are clear. When you legalize something and put reasonable regulatory boundaries around it, you take away the profit motive of all the underbelly that gets wrapped around that product. And we've seen it from guns to drugs to everything else. This experiment has been done 1,000 different times across 1,000 different things, all down through history, right? Prohibition of alcohol never bloody worked. But what it did do is it pushed up the cost of alcohol like 10 to 20x as a result, because you just made the black market through legislation, right? And so the reality is, I think you have to take away the insane profit motive out of the drug industry. You have to take that away. Otherwise, you will continue to get the mass destruction of societies. You will still continue to have the mass incarceration of people for something that should not be illegal, because people should have total sovereignty over their own bodies and what they do with it. Now, if they do something, again, I'm a massive proponent. You do something while you're high on meth or something else, and you kill someone or you injure someone or you hit your wife or you do something else, man, the penalties for that should be so extreme that people take a really long, hard look at themselves before they start doing something they shouldn't do.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that one. I think sovereignty over your own body, as long as it's not affecting anybody else, should be a universal right. And in our small little corner of the world at Jane here, we're going to continue to fight the good fight. And again, try to just shine light on the truth and do our best from, what we're good at, and that's building software. So appreciate that, Jason.
If you'd like to get mentored by Jason for free, head over to greenwoodconsulting.net, scroll to the bottom of the page, and click Get Mentored by Jason.